It all started with a single text message. It was late in the evening, around 11:30 p.m., when my phone buzzed. I had been lying in bed, scrolling through random videos, half watching TV and half distracted, when the notification popped up. I didn't think much of it at first, just another spam message, or maybe one of those annoying, "we miss you" texts from some app I'd downloaded months ago. But then I saw the name. Tommy, I need to tell you something. It was from an unknown number, but it was clearly someone who knew me. My first instinct was to just ignore it. I'm not one for drama, and I certainly don't chase down mysterious messages. But the words haunted me. I need to tell you something. I tried to forget about it, but it felt like a weight pressing on my chest. Was it a scam? Some sort of prank? Maybe a weird coincidence? It was strange, though. The tone of the message wasn't like the usual random spam I'd gotten. This felt personal. Too personal. I stared at my phone for what felt like forever, unable to move. The screen glowed in the dark, but the silence in the room was deafening. Ellie, my wife, was asleep next to me, her steady breathing filling the quiet. I glanced at her, then back at the message. I knew this wasn't something I could ignore. After a minute of hesitation, I typed back, "Who is this?" I waited. My fingers hovered over the screen, unsure if I should just drop it. I couldn't shake the feeling, though. Whoever it was had been deliberate in reaching out to me, and there was something about the message that felt like it had been sent with purpose, with weight. Seconds later, a reply pinged back. "I know what's been happening. You need to hear this, Tommy." My heart dropped. You need to hear this? What the hell was going on? What could anyone possibly want to tell me that was so important? I looked over at Ellie once more. She was still peacefully asleep, completely unaware of what was unfolding in the dark. But in that moment, I felt the first crack in the perfect facade of our life. I typed back, my hands now shaking. "What's going on? Who are you?" The response came immediately. "It's about Ellie. I know what she's been doing." My mind went blank. Ellie? My wife? What in the world was this person talking about? I felt like I was drowning in confusion. The words felt like a punch to the gut, but at the same time, they made a strange kind of sense. I had been feeling it for a while now, the distance between us. The subtle changes that I had tried to brush off as nothing. Ellie had been off. It started a few months ago when she got a new job at some tech startup. It was an exciting opportunity for her, and I was happy for her. But soon after she started, I noticed her coming home later and later, sometimes staying at the office for late meetings, other times telling me she had to go out with friends. Things were slipping between us. Small things at first. She was distracted when we talked, her phone always in her hand, never quite looking at me the way she used to. Then, there were the little lies. I had asked her once about her phone, about the constant buzzing in the middle of the night, but she'd brushed it off, laughing it off as work stuff. She seemed so confident in her answers. I almost convinced myself that I was just paranoid. But now I wasn't so sure. I couldn't believe what I was reading. This wasn't some random prank. Whoever had sent this message knew something. Something about Ellie. Something I didn't know. I took a deep breath and typed again. "What has she been doing? Who is this?" The response came quickly, almost too quickly. "You'll see soon enough. Just wait. It's all about to come out. But I'm giving you a warning now. You're not ready for it." I felt a rush of blood in my ears. What was I reading? Was I being set up? Or was this some weird, twisted joke? I almost wanted to text back and demand more answers. But before I could, another message came in. "Tomorrow. You'll find out tomorrow." And then, silence. No more messages came through after that. No sign of the mysterious person who had sent the text. My phone sat in my hand, the screen glowing in the dark, casting strange shadows across the room. I wanted to wake Ellie up, ask her about it, confront her, but something stopped me. I didn't want to seem crazy, and maybe I was overreacting. Maybe it was all nothing. But in the pit of my stomach, I knew it wasn't nothing. Something was going on. Something bigger than I could even begin to understand. I spent the rest of the night tossing and turning, unable to sleep, the words from the text replaying in my mind over and over again. "Tomorrow. You'll find out tomorrow." What was I supposed to do with that? Was this some elaborate prank? Was it a wake-up call? Or was it a warning that I should have never ignored? The next day, everything seemed normal. Ellie went to work like usual, smiling and kissing me goodbye before leaving for the office. Her normal routine. But the moment she walked out the door, I felt a sense of dread settle over me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going to happen today. and I couldn't decide if I was ready for it or not. The morning passed slowly. My eyes kept drifting back to my phone, lying face up on the table, the screen empty. No more messages came through. It almost felt like the world had returned to normal, like the strange text the night before was a fleeting dream, one I could ignore and push to the back of my mind. But I couldn't. It lingered, like a shadow that wouldn't go away, creeping into my thoughts every time I tried to focus on something else. Ellie left for work just like any other day. She was in a rush, grabbing her coffee from the counter, rushing out the door with a distracted kiss on my cheek. I wanted to ask her if everything was okay, if she'd been hiding something, but the words never came. She was acting normal, almost too normal, and I didn't want to make it obvious that something was off. So I stayed quiet. The weight of that message was too heavy to ignore, but I didn't know how to bring it up. She had been acting distant for weeks now. It was subtle at first, the late nights, the quiet mornings where she'd just stare out the window, lost in thought. She claimed it was work stress, the demands of her new job. But now, after the message, I wasn't so sure. I tried to distract myself. I went about my day like nothing was wrong. But every time I looked at the clock, I couldn't shake the thought, tomorrow. You'll find out tomorrow. It was like a countdown in my head, a reminder that something big was about to unfold. By the time evening rolled around, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I couldn't sit back and wait for whatever this was to come crashing down. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called her office. Hello, this is Ellie's office. How may I help you? The voice on the other end sounded polite, professional. But something about the way they answered the phone made me uneasy. I'm her husband, Thomas Fitzgerald. I just wanted to check if Ellie was still there. She mentioned she had a late meeting, but I was hoping to speak with her. There was a brief pause, and I could hear the rustling of papers on the other side. Then the voice came back, but this time, it was colder. Sorry, Mr. Fitzgerald. Ellie isn't here right now. She left a little while ago for a business dinner. A business dinner? It was only 5:30 p.m. Ellie had never come home so late after work. I could feel my heart begin to race. Do you know where she went? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. There was another long pause. I'm afraid I don't have that information, sir. Is there anything else I can help you with? I thanked the woman quickly and hung up the phone. My mind was spinning. A business dinner? That didn't make sense. Ellie had mentioned nothing about it this morning. I grabbed my coat and left the apartment, a surge of adrenaline coursing through me. I had to find out what was going on. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but I knew I couldn't just sit here, waiting for things to unravel. I drove around the city for what felt like hours, passing familiar streets and intersections, until I found myself near her office building. I parked a few blocks away, not wanting to seem too obvious, but every part of me screamed to rush inside and demand answers. I waited. I told myself I was being ridiculous. This wasn't the Thomas the first was. I wasn't the kind of guy to stalk his wife, to doubt her without any proof. But deep down, I felt like something was happening. Something I was being kept in the dark about. It wasn't until an hour later that I saw her. She walked out of the office building, but not alone. She was with him. The man from last night. The one who had sent that message. Luke. I felt like I'd been slapped in the face. They were laughing, walking side by side, as if nothing was wrong, as if everything between them was normal. Luke had his arm around her, and Ellie. Ellie wasn't pulling away. She didn't look uncomfortable. In fact, she seemed completely at ease, like this was the most natural thing in the world. I wanted to call out to her, to confront her right there, but something held me back. I watched them from a distance, feeling like I was trapped in some kind of nightmare I couldn't escape. They stopped at a bar across the street. I watched as they walked in together. The door swung shut behind them, sealing them off from the world. I felt a rush of anger and betrayal flooding through me. The person I had trusted most in the world was keeping something from me, something big, and I didn't know what it was. I stood there for a long time, staring at the bar, unable to move. I felt like I was losing my grip on reality, like everything I thought I knew was slipping away. Then I heard footsteps behind me. I turned around quickly, my heart leaping into my throat. It was him. Luke. He was standing there, just a few feet away, looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. I think you've seen enough, he said, his voice calm, but with a hint of something darker behind it. My mouth went dry. I wanted to say something, anything, but no words came out. I was frozen, staring at him as the seconds stretched on. You're not going to say anything, Tommy, he asked, a twisted smile playing at the corner of his lips. I couldn't even respond. My mind was racing, my heart pounding. How could I have been so blind? Luke stepped closer, his gaze never leaving mine. I told you, you weren't ready for this. But now you know, he said softly. Tomorrow, you'll understand everything. But for now, you'll have to live with this. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the night. The night felt endless. I sat in my car for what seemed like hours after Luke disappeared into the shadows, my hands gripping the steering wheel as I tried to process everything that had just happened. The night air was heavy, and the city lights blurred in front of me, as if everything around me had lost its clarity. My heart pounded in my chest, and all I could think about was Ellie, my wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone. She was with him, wasn't she? I had seen it with my own eyes. And that message, I know what she's been doing. It was all starting to make a sickening kind of sense. I wanted to drive straight to the bar, confront her, demand answers. But I couldn't bring myself to do it. Something in my gut told me that this wasn't the right way. If I barged in now, if I screamed at her and Luke, all I would get was chaos, confusion. I needed to think clearly, and right now, I was far from clear-headed. So I drove home. The silence in the apartment greeted me like a cold wind. I took off my jacket and dropped my keys on the counter. Ellie wasn't home yet, and for the first time in what felt like years, I welcomed the solitude. It was a strange feeling, being alone, in the place I shared with my wife, but feeling so far apart from her. I poured myself a drink. It was the only thing that helped my nerves settle. A couple of shots, and maybe I could think straight, maybe I could figure out what to do next. But my mind kept drifting back to the same things, Ellie and Luke. The way they had looked at each other. The way Ellie had laughed. That sounds so familiar, but now so hollow. It was as if I had seen something I was never supposed to see, and now I couldn't unsee it. I heard the door click open around midnight. Ellie stepped inside, her shoes clicking against the floor as she walked in. She was wearing a coat I didn't recognize, and her hair was slightly messier than usual. But what caught my attention most was the look on her face. Guilt? Worry? I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She paused in the doorway when she saw me sitting in the living room, the dim light from the kitchen casting shadows on my face. "Thomas, you're still up?" she asked, trying to sound casual, but I could hear the tension in her voice. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at her, searching her face for something, anything, that would make sense of all this. My heart was beating so loud in my ears that I almost didn't hear her speak again. "Is everything okay?" Ellie asked, a little more cautiously this time. "You look off." I wanted to laugh at how naive she sounded. Of course, something wasn't okay. Of course, I was off. How could I not be, when I was drowning in confusion and betrayal? "You want to tell me where you've been tonight?" I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Her eyes widened slightly, and for the first time, she looked a little defensive. "I told you. I was at a dinner meeting with some colleagues." "Why would you even? Is that all?" I cut her off. "Just a dinner meeting with your colleagues?" Ellie shifted uncomfortably, glancing away. "Yes, Thomas. Why are you acting like this?" I leaned forward, my hands gripping the arms of the chair, the words I had been holding back bubbling up to the surface. "Because I saw you, Ellie. I saw you with him. Luke, don't lie to me. Don't make this worse than it already is." The room went dead silent. Her face drained of color, and she took a few steps back, as if she needed space to process the words I had just thrown at her. Her mouth opened and closed a few times, but no words came out. "Thomas, I wasn't. It's not what you think," she stammered, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. I stood up abruptly, unable to sit still any longer. "Then what is it, Ellie? Tell me. What is it?" Her eyes filled with something. Regret, fear, shame? I wasn't sure anymore. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "But I've been seeing him, Tommy. I've been seeing Luke, for the past few months." I took a step back as her words crashed into me like a tidal wave. "Seeing him?" I repeated, barely able to grasp the meaning of her confession. "What do you mean? Seeing him how?" She wiped a tear away from her cheek, but her face was hard, like she had already made peace with whatever was going on. "We've been together, more than just work colleagues. He's been helping me with things. I didn't want to tell you. I thought I could stop it, but you didn't." I finished for her, the words coming out sharp and cold. Her silence spoke volumes. I didn't know whether to scream or break down. I had spent so much time trying to convince myself everything was fine, trying to hold on to the relationship we had. But now it was all slipping away, piece by piece, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Why, Ellie? Why him? Why didn't you tell me? I asked, my voice breaking. She took a deep breath, looking at me as if she was trying to find the right words. I didn't know how to tell you. I never meant for it to go this far. It just happened. I'm sorry, Tommy. I let out a bitter laugh, the sound almost choking me. Sorry? That's it. You're sorry? She nodded, her eyes filled with tears now. I never wanted to hurt you. I love you, Tommy. But I've been falling for him, and I didn't know how to stop it. The air between us felt suffocating, and every word she said pushed me further away from her. Love? How could she say she loved me when she had been with someone else? How could I trust anything she said now? I turned away from her, the room spinning as everything I thought I knew about our life shattered. The person I had loved, the woman I had married, was no longer the same. And I had no idea who she was anymore. I had one last question for her, the one that had been eating away at me since the moment I saw Luke tonight. Why, Ellie? Why did he send me that message? Why did he tell me to wait for tomorrow? Her expression froze. She looked like a deer caught in headlights. Then she whispered, I don't know. And in that moment, I realized I had no idea what was coming next. The truth, whatever it was coming, tomorrow. But it wasn't just about Ellie and Luke anymore. It was about something bigger, something far darker. I couldn't breathe. My chest felt tight, like there was a weight pressing down on me, crushing me slowly. Ellie stood there, her eyes pleading, but I couldn't look at her anymore. Not the same way. I wanted to scream, to ask her 100 questions. How long had this been going on? Why didn't I see it? But the questions didn't seem to matter anymore. The world I thought I knew was gone, and all I had left was this unbearable emptiness. I turned away from her, walking to the window, the city lights flickering like distant stars. I couldn't even process the sound of Ellie's voice calling my name, or the soft footsteps behind me. She reached out to touch my shoulder, but I pulled away. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the feeling that I had been living in a lie for years. Everything, all of it, had been fake. A carefully constructed illusion. Tommy, please, she said softly, her voice trembling. I never meant for any of this to happen. I didn't want to hurt you. I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me, but it wasn't just anger. It was more than that. It was disbelief, confusion, sadness, an overwhelming mix of emotions that I couldn't even begin to process. Then why, Ellie? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why did you do it? Why him? Why couldn't you come to me before? She stood there for a long time, looking down at her feet. I don't know, Tommy, she finally said, her voice barely audible. I felt lost. I felt like something was missing. And when Luke came into my life, it was like he understood me in a way you didn't. Her words hit me like a slap in the face. She felt lost. She felt like something was missing. And she turned to him, to Luke. My heart twisted in my chest, and for a moment, I thought I might actually be sick. I had been here, right next to her, for years. And yet, she had pushed me aside. I couldn't understand how she could throw everything away for him. I took a step back, shaking my head. So what? You just fell in love with him? Is that what you're saying? Ellie bit her lip, her eyes tearing up again. No, Tommy, it wasn't like that. At first, it was just work. He was a colleague, someone I could talk to. And then, it just happened. It wasn't supposed to. I didn't plan for any of it. And the message? I asked, my voice shaking. Why did he send me that? Why did he tell me to wait for tomorrow? Ellie's face turned pale, and for a second, I saw something flicker in her eyes, fear. She took a step toward me, but I held up my hand to stop her. I didn't want her to touch me again, not like this. Not when everything had been turned upside down. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know what he's planning. But I think he's trying to tell you something. Something that I'm not ready to say. I stared at her, 1,000 thoughts racing through my mind. I wasn't ready to hear any more. Not from her. But something about the way she said it made me pause. Something about the fear in her eyes made me think that she wasn't the only one in this. There was something bigger at play here, something beyond just an affair. Luke had been playing a game, one that I hadn't even known I was a part of. The silence between us stretched on for what felt like hours. Neither of us knew what to say next. I could feel my pulse hammering in my temples, my brain a fog of confusion and rage. I need to know everything, Ellie, I said through gritted teeth. And I need to know now. She took a deep breath and finally sat down on the couch, her hands clasped in her lap. I don't know if I can tell you everything, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I've been trying to figure it out myself. Figure it out? I shot back, the anger flaring up again. You've been sleeping with another man behind my back for months, and now you're telling me you're still trying to figure it out? Ellie flinched at my words, but I didn't care. I needed answers, and I needed them now. The longer I stood there, the more it felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling away. Luke, he's not just some colleague, Ellie continued, her voice trembling. He's part of something bigger. Something I didn't understand when it started. What do you mean, something bigger? I asked, my heart racing. This was it, the part one had been dreading. The part where everything came to light. What is he involved in? Ellie hesitated, glancing up at me with wide eyes. I don't know all the details, Tommy, but I think he's involved with people who have connections. Powerful connections. I don't know who they are, but I think he's been manipulating me. Maybe all of us. I felt the ground shift beneath me as her words sank in. My first thought was disbelief. But there was something about the way she said it. Her fear, the way she couldn't meet my eyes, that made me believe her. Manipulating you? I echoed, barely able to process the words. What do you mean? How? Ellie closed her eyes, as if trying to steady herself. I don't know, Tommy. At first, it was innocent. He said he could help me with my career, help me make connections, open doors. But then, it started getting weird. The meetings, the late nights, the pressure. It was like I was being pulled deeper into something I didn't understand. I felt a cold chill run through me. This wasn't just about cheating. It wasn't just an affair. It was something darker. Something that went far beyond any of my worst fears. So you're telling me this whole thing was never about us? I asked, my voice low. It was always about him and whatever he's involved in. Ellie nodded, her face pale. I didn't want to believe it, Tommy. But now I'm scared. I think we're in over our heads. I didn't know what to say. The world I had once trusted, the life I had built, was being torn apart right in front of me, and all I could do was watch. I had no idea what Luke's game was, but I knew one thing for sure. It wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And I couldn't just sit by anymore. I had to find out what he was really after. To find out what Ellie had gotten herself mixed up in. To find out what he wanted. Tomorrow was the day I would finally know the truth. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I had been through a war, exhausted, emotionally drained, and stuck in a haze of confusion. I could barely bring myself to get out of bed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand, and for a brief moment, I thought it might be Ellie, apologizing again, trying to explain herself one more time. But no, it wasn't her. It was a text from an unknown number, and it sent a cold shiver down my spine. You know it's not over, Tommy. It's only just beginning. My hands trembled as I read the message again. The words seemed to burn themselves into my mind. I knew immediately that this was Luke. No one else would be so cryptic, so deliberate in their threats. The sense of unease that had been building in me for days now felt like a suffocating weight. Ellie was in the kitchen, making coffee, her back to me as I stood in the doorway of the bedroom. I wanted to say something, ask her more questions, demand answers. But I could barely look at her. The lies were too much, and the betrayal too deep. I had no idea what kind of game Luke was playing, but I knew I had to find out. I grabbed my phone and texted back. What do you want from me? What do you want from Ellie? I stared at the screen, waiting for a response, but none came. Minutes stretched into hours. Ellie tried to talk to me a few times during breakfast, but I couldn't engage with her. She would try to reach out, her voice softer than usual, but I just couldn't bring myself to trust her. She had betrayed me, and nothing she could say would change that. At least, not yet. I spent the entire day avoiding Ellie, retreating into myself. I couldn't focus on anything. I kept replaying the messages, Ellie's confession, the image of her with Luke in that bar, the fear in her eyes when she mentioned something bigger, something dangerous. She had barely said anything more, and I could feel the weight of her silence pressing down on me, suffocating any remaining semblance of peace. Around 3 p.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, the message was from Luke. You're asking the wrong questions, Tommy. Meet me tonight. I'll tell you everything. But be careful who you trust. You might not like what you find. My stomach dropped as I read those words. Everything inside me screamed that I should ignore it. This was his game. This was all manipulation, meant to pull me further into his web. But there was a part of me that couldn't resist. I had to know. I had to know who was behind all of this, who had dragged Ellie into whatever dark world she had found herself in. I texted back quickly, my mind racing. Where? What time? The reply came almost instantly. 7 p.m. Same place. It was the bar. The same one where I had seen them together the night before. I spent the next few hours in a daze. I couldn't sit still. My mind was running 1,000 miles a minute. Why had Ellie gotten herself involved with him? What was Luke's game? And why did it feel like this whole thing was spiraling out of control, moving faster than I could keep up? By the time 6:30 p.m. rolled around, I knew I had no choice but to confront this head-on. If I didn't go now, I would never have the chance to know the truth. I grabbed my jacket and headed for the door, my pulse quickening as I stepped out into the cold night air. The bar wasn't far. It was located in a quiet corner of the city, a place that felt like it belonged to a different time, with dark wood floors, low lighting, and a sense of secrecy that seemed to hang in the air. I walked inside, scanning the room, but Luke wasn't there yet. I found a seat at the bar and ordered a drink, my nerves on edge. Every minute felt like an eternity. I watched the clock as the minutes slowly ticked by, until finally, around 7:10 p.m., I saw him. Luke. He was standing at the entrance, leaning casually against the doorframe, his eyes scanning the room. When he saw me, he nodded, the same twisted smile on his face that I had seen the night before. "Tommy," he said, his voice smooth, almost mocking. "I'm glad you came." I didn't say anything in return. I just stared at him, the anger inside me bubbling up to the surface. He motioned for me to follow him, and I did, without hesitation. We went to a quiet booth in the back of the bar, where the shadows were deep and the noise of the crowd felt distant. "Sit down," he said, his voice cold but with an edge of amusement. "We have a lot to talk about." I didn't sit immediately. I stood there, my fists clenched at my sides, trying to control the overwhelming urge to punch him in the face. But I held it together. Just barely. "What do you want from me?" I finally managed to ask, my voice low, though it was laced with anger. "What's this about? Why are you doing this? Why the game?" Luke chuckled, leaning back in the booth like he owned the place. "It's not a game, Tommy. It's reality. You just haven't figured that out yet." I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "What do you mean by reality? What's really going on?" Luke's eyes gleamed with something dangerous, something dark. "You've been asking all the wrong questions. It's not about Ellie. Not anymore. It's about power, control. You've been living in a world where everything seems perfect, but it's all a lie. The people behind all of this, behind Ellie's involvement, are playing a bigger game, and you've just become part of it." I felt my blood run cold. The room seemed to close in on me, the air thick and suffocating. "What people?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "Who's pulling the strings?" Luke leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper, barely audible. "I can't tell you everything. Not yet. But I can tell you this. You're in deeper than you think. And if you keep following this trail, you might not like what you find." I stared at him, my heart pounding, my mind racing. What had Ellie gotten herself into? And why had Luke chosen me to drag into this nightmare? Before I could speak again, Luke stood up. He was leaving. And just like that, the conversation was over. "You'll figure it out soon enough, Tommy," he said, his smile twisted and knowing. "Just remember, trust no one." And with that, he was gone, leaving me alone in the darkened booth, feeling more lost than ever before. I sat there for what felt like hours, the weight of Luke's words pressing down on me. Trust no one. The words echoed in my head as I stared blankly at the table, the dim light casting long shadows across the room. I had come here to get answers, but all I had received were more questions. Power. Control. A bigger game. It all sounded like the plot of some twisted conspiracy, but there was a reality to Luke's words that I couldn't shake. I had known something was wrong from the very beginning, but now I was in too deep. I couldn't just walk away. Not when I was this close to the truth. I needed to leave. I couldn't stay here any longer, lost in the confusion that had overtaken me. But as I stood to leave, something stopped me, something just out of the corner of my eye. Across the bar, sitting in a dark corner booth, was someone I recognized. It was Ellie. She was sitting alone, her eyes fixed on the table in front of her, her hands clasped together in her lap. She wasn't looking at me, but I felt a wave of panic rush through me as I realized she was here, in this place, at the same time as Luke. I hadn't seen her leave, hadn't even thought she knew this bar existed, but here she was, looking lost and distant, as if she didn't belong. I walked over to her without thinking. My heart was pounding in my chest as I approached, unsure of what to say. When I reached the booth, Ellie looked up, startled. Her eyes widened in surprise, and she immediately stood up, clearly trying to mask her discomfort. "Tommy, what are you doing here?" she asked, her voice shaky. She wasn't expecting me, and I could tell she was caught off guard by my presence. But there was something in her eyes, something familiar and unsettling. It was guilt. "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, my voice flat, holding back the anger that was threatening to surface. "What's going on, Ellie? Why are you here?" She hesitated, then quickly glanced around the bar, almost as if to make sure no one was watching us. I didn't expect to see you here. I didn't think you would come to a place like this." "A place like what?" I shot back, sitting down across from her without waiting for an invitation. "You're acting like I'm the one who's out of place. I saw you last night, Ellie. With him. You and Luke. Now you're here too. So why don't you tell me what the hell is really going on?" Ellie flinched at the harshness of my words, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But instead, she stared at me, her eyes filled with a mix of fear and regret. "Tommy, please, you don't understand." "Then help me understand," I nearly shouted, my frustration bubbling over. "Because everything is falling apart. I've been trying to make sense of it, but the more I find out, the more it feels like I'm the last one to know. What did Luke mean by all this? What game is he playing? And where do you fit into it?" She sighed heavily, her gaze drifting down to her hands. She seemed so small in that moment, so fragile. "It's not a game," she whispered. "At least, not the way you think. Luke isn't just some guy. He's involved in something bigger. I didn't want to tell you. I never wanted to drag you into this." "Then why did you?" I asked, my voice softening just slightly. "Why didn't you trust me, Ellie? We've been together for years. Why didn't you come to me when things started going wrong?" Her eyes flickered with pain, but she didn't respond right away. Instead, she seemed lost in thought, her gaze unfocused, as if trying to put together the words she didn't know how to say. "I thought I could handle it on my own," she finally said, her voice breaking. "But I couldn't. And now, I'm in too deep. So are you." I leaned forward, my hands gripping the edge of the table. "In too deep? What the hell does that even mean, Ellie? What is this thing you're involved in? Who are these people?" Ellie's eyes darted nervously around the room, and she leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. "I can't tell you everything, Tommy. But you need to understand, Luke is connected. He's not just some guy. He's part of something. Something dangerous. There are people behind all of this, people you don't want to mess with. I thought I could keep it under control, but it's gotten worse. Much worse." I felt a cold chill wash over me as the pieces started to fall into place. Ellie's distance, her late nights, the secretive messages, the lies. It wasn't just a simple affair. It was something far bigger, something I hadn't even begun to comprehend. "Who are they, Ellie?" I asked, my voice urgent. "Who is Luke working for? What are they planning?" She shook her head slowly, her face pale. "I can't say too much. I don't even know all the details myself. But there's a plan, Tommy. A big one. And it involves people like me. People who have the right connections, the right skills. Luke's been guiding me, pushing me in the right direction. But I'm scared. I'm so scared. These people, they're not to be trusted." My mind was spinning, my thoughts jumbled. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was about something far darker, something I didn't understand. And Ellie had been pulled into it. I could see the fear in her eyes, hear it in her voice. She was terrified. And I couldn't tell if that fear was because of the people she was involved with, or if it was because of what she had done to me. "I don't know if I can trust you anymore, Ellie," I said quietly, my words hanging heavy in the air. "You've lied to me for so long. How can I believe anything you say now?" Ellie's eyes filled with tears, and she reached across the table, her hand trembling. "Tommy, please. I didn't want this. I never wanted to hurt you. But I need your help. We need to get out of this, together. It's the only way." I looked at her hand, at the desperation in her eyes, and for a moment, I considered it. Could I really walk away from everything we'd built? Could I really turn my back on her now, when she was asking for my help? But I wasn't sure who to trust anymore, not even her. I don't know if I can, Ellie, I said, standing up slowly. I need time. I need to figure out what the hell is really going on before I make any decisions. As I turned to leave, I heard her voice one last time, desperate and pleading. Tommy, please. You don't know what you're up against. They'll come for you too. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The door closed behind me, and I walked out into the cold night, my heart pounding, my mind racing with fear and uncertainty. Ellie had warned me, but I wasn't sure if she was still the person I thought I knew. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized everything had changed. And now, there was no going back. I walked down the empty street, the cold wind biting into my skin, my mind swirling in a whirlwind of confusion and dread. Ellie's words echoed in my head, her desperate plea for my help. You don't know what you're up against. I didn't know what that meant, what they were, what kind of game I had unwittingly walked into. But I could feel the weight of it all pressing on me, threatening to crush me with every step. I hadn't meant to leave the bar the way I did, but something in my gut told me that staying there would only make things worse. I had to think, to figure out what the hell was going on, but the more I thought, the more it felt like the ground beneath me was shifting. Every answer led to more questions. Every truth led to another lie. It was all starting to fall apart, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. I had always considered myself a smart man, someone who could figure things out. But now I was lost, completely lost. I didn't know who to trust, and the only person who could give me the answers, Ellie, was the one who had been lying to me from the start. I walked aimlessly for what felt like hours, trying to clear my mind. But the more I tried, the more the pieces came crashing down. Ellie had been involved in something dangerous. Luke wasn't just a man having an affair with my wife. He was part of something bigger, something that had already begun to drag me in. And now, I was in too deep to walk away. I needed to find Luke. I had to get answers, and I couldn't afford to wait any longer. I pulled out my phone and looked at the time. It was almost 10 p.m. The message from Luke that afternoon echoed in my mind. Trust no one. You'll figure it out soon enough. The words felt like a threat now. He had been playing me, manipulating me, every step of the way. But why? What did he want from me? And what kind of world had Ellie gotten herself involved in? I couldn't stop thinking about her face when she said, "They'll come for you too." She was scared. And if she was scared, that meant whatever she was caught up in was bigger than I could imagine. The people behind this weren't just after her. They were after all of us. And now, they had me in their sights. I needed to confront Luke, but I didn't know where to start. He had told me to meet him at the bar, but what if he didn't show? What if this was just another manipulation, another trap? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't trust anything anymore. The stakes were too high. I stopped in front of my apartment building and stared up at the dark windows. Ellie was inside, probably waiting for me to come back, to talk to her. But what was there left to say? Could I ever trust her again? She had been lying to me for months, keeping secrets that had the potential to destroy everything I knew. And now, she was asking for my help. I didn't know if I could give it to her. I turned and walked away, my phone buzzing in my pocket. I pulled it out, half expecting another cryptic message from Luke. But it wasn't him. It was Ellie. Please, Tommy. You don't understand what you're getting into. They'll come after you next. You're not safe. Please, let me help you. I felt a sickening knot form in my stomach as I read the message. She was still asking for my help. But how could I help her when I didn't even know what she was involved in? How could I trust anything she said when she had been keeping secrets from me all this time? The fear in her message was real. I could feel it in the words. I had to make a decision. I couldn't keep running from the truth. I couldn't keep pretending like everything would just fix itself. Ellie was in danger, and whether I liked it or not, I was in danger too. I made up my mind then. I would confront Luke again. But this time, I wouldn't be looking for answers. I'd be looking for the truth. The real truth. I wasn't going to play his game anymore. I texted Ellie back. I'll handle it. Stay inside. Don't go anywhere. I knew it was a risk, but I had no choice. I had to end this, whatever this was, once and for all. I took a deep breath and headed back to the bar, the place that had become a symbol of everything that had gone wrong. It wasn't a coincidence that I had found Ellie there. I wasn't sure if she had been meeting Luke or if she had been following me, but something about the way she had been acting made me think she was more involved than she had let on. The bar was quieter than before, but it was still the same, dark, shadowy, and full of secrets. I walked in, my eyes scanning the room. There was no sign of Luke yet, but I could feel the tension in the air, like something was about to happen. I ordered a drink, the familiar taste of whiskey doing little to calm my nerves, and waited. As the minutes passed, I kept thinking about what Ellie had said. "You're not safe." Was she right? Had I stepped into something I didn't understand? What kind of people was she dealing with? And why was Luke so determined to drag me into this? I could hear the soft chime of the door opening, and I turned instinctively, expecting Luke to walk in. But it wasn't him. It was someone else. A man in a dark suit, tall and imposing, with cold, calculating eyes. He walked in like he owned the place, and as soon as he saw me, he made a beeline toward my table. I didn't recognize him, but something about his presence made me uneasy. He sat down across from me without asking, his gaze steady and unblinking. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't need to. "I've been watching you, Tommy," he said, his voice smooth but chilling. "You're in deeper than you realize." I froze, my heart pounding. Who was this guy? And what did he want with me? The man in the dark suit stared at me, his cold eyes studying every movement I made. I didn't know who he was or what he wanted, but every instinct in me screamed that I needed to get out of here, fast. I could feel the weight of his presence, like a predator closing in. "I don't know who you are, and I don't care," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But if you're here because of Luke, then you're wasting your time. I'm done with this." The man's lips curled into a slight smile. "You misunderstand, Tommy. We're not here to threaten you. We just want you to understand something." I felt my pulse race. Understand what? He leaned back in the booth, his posture relaxed but still calculating. "Ellie isn't the only one in this situation who's being controlled. The people she's involved with, they have a purpose, a bigger goal. But you, Tommy, you've been chosen. Chosen for something far more important than you can imagine." I shook my head, feeling like I was losing my grip on reality. "I don't want anything to do with your purpose or whatever this is. I just want to leave. I want to go home and forget about all of this." He paused, his eyes narrowing as if he was weighing my words. Then, unexpectedly, he sighed and slid a folder across the table toward me. "Here's your choice, Tommy. You can walk away and let everything unfold as it will, or you can step into the truth. Your truth. No one has forced you to be here. But you've seen enough. You know too much." I stared at the folder, unsure what to do. It felt like the world had collapsed around me. And yet, in this strange moment, I felt a sense of clarity. I had been a passive observer for so long, waiting for someone else to give me the answers. But now, I had to make a decision. No more running. No more questions. It was time for me to choose who I wanted to be. "Take it," the man said, his tone softer now. "You're stronger than you think, Tommy. It's not too late to take control of your life." I took the folder in my hands, opening it slowly. Inside were documents, maps, photographs, and names. I didn't recognize most of it, but there were a few things that caught my eye. Ellie's name was on one of the documents, and there were coordinates, places I recognized. But most of all, there was a letter. I unfolded it, my hands shaking as I read. "Tommy, I know this has been hard, but you've always been capable of more than you realize. What you've seen isn't the end. It's the beginning of something new. I've always believed in you. And now, I'm asking you to believe in yourself. This is your chance to make a choice for your future. Don't let fear guide you. You've got this." I felt the sting of tears in my eyes as I read her words. Ellie, despite everything, despite the lies, the pain, the betrayals, she still believed in me. She had been scared, caught in something she didn't understand. But now, she was asking me to trust myself, to choose my own path. I closed the folder and looked up at the man. "I'm done running," I said, my voice firm. "Give me what I need. I'll take the path I choose." The man nodded, the smile returning to his face. "Good choice, Tommy. You'll never regret it." He stood up, and I followed suit. He handed me a small key card and a few more papers. "This is the first step. The rest is up to you." With that, he walked away, leaving me alone in the bar. I looked at the items in my hands, feeling a sense of resolution wash over me. I wasn't sure what came next, but for the first time in a long time, I felt in control. The fear was still there, but it wasn't going to hold me back. I had a choice now, and I was going to make it count. As I stepped out of the bar into the crisp night air, I felt a sense of freedom I hadn't experienced in what felt like forever. The city around me was still the same, no less dangerous, no less mysterious, but I was different. I wasn't the same person who had walked into this nightmare weeks ago. I was stronger, more focused. I knew what I had to do. The road ahead wasn't going to be easy. There would be challenges. There would be moments of doubt. But I knew one thing. I wasn't alone. Ellie might have made mistakes, but she had always believed in me. And I believed in her too. We both had a future ahead of us, one we could build together if we made the right choices. I took a deep breath, the cool air filling my lungs, and I walked toward the unknown with confidence. Whatever came next, I was ready. And this time, I wasn't going to let fear control me.